this is Blossom. As you can see, she's a very large cow, and she's also not a very mannerly cow. She's very sweet, and she's easy to walk up to, very friendly and all that, but she's not real mannerly. See, she was about to shove me there. No, you don't shove me. She probably weighs somewhere close to 1,000 pounds, and so she's not the kind of cow that you can just let get away with walking all over you. It'd be very painful. So I'm going to try to give her a lesson in manners tonight. And the first thing I'm going to do is attempt to put this smallish horse halter, rope halter, on her head. And she has a very large head, so I don't know whether it will fit. But I'm going to give it a try. Come here, girl. Now, I have her in a small contained area so that I can easily catch her again if I have to. But I'm also going to put a rope on her. Good girl. She gave to that pressure, so that was good. She does not lead. She's never worn a halter before until just a few days ago. And I haven't done really anything with her since she came here. But we'll see. I'm going to try to get this on her. See if it'll fit. Okay, it will fit. So now, take off this halter. And I will immediately put this one on. I prefer to use rope halters for all kinds of training, horses or cows, because they give you a lot more control of the animal. They're significantly more specific and have a stronger correction than a webbing halter. There we go. Good girl, Blossom. Now, the position I'm in is not a bad one, even though she had her neck kind of wrapped around me there a little bit, because she can't kick me easily. I'm far enough away from her leg. They don't kick very well with their front feet, so that's not really a concern. And she can't butt me. She has no horns. So if she attempts to butt me right now, she's just going to butt me up against her side. So it's not really a concern. So I'll hang this halter up. This kind of halter you can use on them once they're broke. But for halter breaking, it's much better to use a rope halter. Or even just a rope around the neck until they get strong. Now when you're working with cows, it's not a real grand idea to stand directly in front or directly behind them. Because if you're behind them, then obviously they can kick you more easily. And if you're directly in front of them, that kind of induces them to want to push against you. Right, so I'm just going to get over here kind of to the side and just pull her head towards me. Kind of a little bit forward and to the side. Come on, Blossom. There we go. She gave to it a little bit, so I release. Nope. Now she's pulling against me, so I'm going to just hold that. Good girl. So she gives. And when she gives, then I release the rope. Come here, Blossom. Pulling to the side is your friend, because they can't resist a sideways pull nearly as much as a forward pull. Now she moves there, but she didn't really give. She just put her foot forward to brace herself. Good girl. That was better. But she still tried to pull her head away from me. Alright, come here, Blossom. Come on, there you go. Nope. You don't shove me. Thank you. Now, that might have looked kind of mean, me smacking her on the side of the face like that. But really, she just has to learn that my space is my space and she's not invited inside it. Nope. So I'm just going to make her put her head where I want her head, not where she wants her head. And she'll eventually start getting the point that, oh, people are not to be pushed around, trampled upon, all that sort of thing that cows do to each other. Come here, big girl. Good girl. Nope. You're not going to walk on me. You're okay. She's very laid back, kind of lazy and clumsy because of her size. And because of that size, she can hurt someone without even meaning to. Good girl. Like that. She's being disrespectful. Kind of shoving into me like that. See, I'll pet her and she likes that. But as soon as she comes pushing into me and leaning up against me like that, I'm not, there, she stopped that time. I'm not going to let her do that. Alright, come here, Blossom. Good girl. Nope. Come here. Come on. Nope, come on. Good girl. I'm just going to start teaching her that when she sees my hand kind of pressuring her, she needs to move from it. Alright, there she was just going after a fly. She wasn't really trying to be disrespectful. And now she doesn't want to give her head back. There you go. Come here. Come here. You can use kind of short jerks on the rope too. Because they can lean against steady pressure, but they cannot lean against a short yank. So, short jerks are your friend. Good girl. Whoa. No. Good girl. If you have to slap a cow, don't be afraid to slap them kind of hard. They have extremely thick skin. So if you're going to make yourself felt, and you need to if you're going to try to teach them any manners, well, if you're going to make yourself felt, you have to smack them pretty hard. Most likely it will hurt your hand way more than it hurts them. So as long as you can stand it, they can stand it. Especially on a cow this size. Alright, now I'm going to lead her from the other side. Come here. Okay. There you go. Good job. Come on. Good girl. There you go. Alright. Leading in a circle like this is comparatively easy because you're continually pulling them to the side. And they can't really resist that. Leading forward is much more difficult. You gotta stay out of my face, girl. Okay? Here, come on. You move. Good girl. Awesome. Sometimes in order to get the head to move where you want it, you have to move the hind end first. No cleanup. Come here, Bob. Come on. Now eventually it would be nice if she would lead next to me like a horse. Just leading behind me like this really isn't the safest, which is why I frequently turn around and keep looking at her. But we have a momentary interruption here. My brother just got home from work apparently. Sorry about the noise pollution there. Alright. Yeah, he's not coming this way, girl. I don't think. Alright. So, leading forward you can see is much more difficult because they can dig in and resist a lot more than what you can pull. So that's when you pull to the side. There we go. She yields to that. Getting them to turn to the side is eventually the key to getting them to go forward. You teach them to start giving to that pressure on their head. Come here, girl. Come on. Now, she doesn't move quickly enough, you can do that. Now I'm trying to get her to stop. There we go. Nope. This side. Come here. Give me your nose. Come here. Nope. Nope. This is why I like rope halters. It's a little bit difficult to see. Alright, move. But she's leaning on it, but you can't lean too hard. There we go, girl. This is hard, fairly thin rope. It's probably like 3/8 or something. 3/8 of an inch. And basically what I'm doing here, this is basic horse training stuff, but it works great on cows too. And for dairy cows, you need to be able to handle them. Come on, girl. Turn around. There we go. Come here, Blossom. Now we're going to do a little bit of phase 2 of this training, which is tying her up to a post. Now the strongest post in this pen is this one right here. And if you ever tie a cow up to a post to get started, I'm going to start with not very much rope. So only like 18 inches, maybe 2 feet between her and the post. Because that way she cannot tangle herself up. Can't tangle herself up, and she can't get a running start and yank herself back. So I'm just going to leave her there for a minute. Let let her figure out that she's tied, that she's not going to move the post. Kind of pressure. There we go. That was good. I kind of led her to the end of the rope there so she could feel it against her face and figure out how to release that pressure by turning towards it. So I'll just give her a few minutes there. I'm going to stay out here and watch her so that she doesn't hurt herself. She's a pretty docile cow, and she's kind of getting the point of giving the pressure pretty quickly. So I'm not too worried about this. But you do not want to tie them up and leave them unattended. There we go. I kind of want her to feel that pressure against her face a little bit. She's a big enough cow that if she gets into a wrestling match with me, she might be able to move me. But if she gets into a wrestling match with that post, she's eventually going to have to give. Like I said, not something you do unsupervised, but it can be a good training tool. Right now she's just wondering what my dad's doing with the truck out there. She's had a few minutes to think about things now. Kind of stand there, watch the sunset, watch the other cows, so forth. She's done really well. She's just kind of stood here. I would rather almost that she had pulled against it some and figured out how to release the pressure on her own. But I think she's already kind of gotten that point. Back up. She is sensitive to smacks, which is a good thing. She's not overly sensitive, but she's sensitive enough that it makes her respond. Now while she's tied up, I'm just going to kind of handle her all over a little bit. And keep a close eye on these hind feet, because they can kick fast and they can kick very hard with them. She doesn't strike me as being a real kicky kind of a cow, but I don't really know her. She only came here a few days ago, and so I don't want to take a bunch of risks. So I'll just kind of do this. If I had a long stick, or even a whip, a short whip, like a handy stick or something, that would be ideal for this kind of thing, but she's not responding at all. She's not really reacting at all to this, which is good. As you can see, I'm not leaving my hand down there very long, and I'm staying as far away from her leg as I can. So I'm going to go up and just lightly touch her udder, like that. I just kind of brushed my hand over her feet. She didn't react. So I'm going to do it again, a little longer that time. Good girl, Blossom. And this is how you start training them to milk. A bucket of food is very helpful for this, especially if they're in the stanchion. You start training them that the stanchion is a nice place to be. I did a full video on how to train a heifer to milk, but this is just an example of how you can use those same principles in just daily life. There you go. Girl. Yeah, she's handling this very well. I think she's going to be super easy to train to milk. Now, for kind of an interesting thing, there's a cactus spine stuck in her foot, right down near the hoof, right on the hairline. So I'm going to try to get that out without getting my head kicked off. There we go. That was easy. She's not very reactive. That can be a really good thing or a not so good thing. But for a dairy cow, usually not being reactive is a very big plus. As long as they're not so dull that, they'll do crazy stuff like lean up against the electric wire or something like that. And I don't think she is. I think she's a really nice milk cow temperament. Alright, let's untie you, Blossom. Now I'm going to take her out of the pen and work on leading her straight a little bit. Because this is what I'm going to need to do with her tomorrow. I'm planning to move her from this pasture to our other pasture, which means I have to go through our yard first. Go through the yard, I don't want her running away with me. Alright. Now I want to go out the gate first. There we go. And kind of get to the side, because sometimes they tend to run out the gate. Oh. Alright, gets into a little bit of an argument. Move. Nope. So I want her to turn her head towards me and swing her hindquarters a little bit away, like that. More like that. See, she's still trying to kind of plow forward. With cows, when they first have a halter on, usually reaction is pull against that pressure. There you go, good girl. And so they'll lean into it, and they'll run into stuff, they'll do all kinds of crazy things. But she's starting to get the hang of it pretty quick. Now the main thing is, I want her to learn to go where I'm going, at the speed that I'm going, without running me over. Especially without running me over. And if she gets too close, then she's going to get a little close to the end of the rope. Good girl. She's starting to get the point. Right there she's starting to pick up some speed and just plow ahead. With cows, usually when they're going to pull against a halter, they put their head down first, and then they just go. And it's much more difficult to stop them once they get their head down than it is when they still have it up a little bit. Come on, Mabel, get out of the way. Come on, Buttercup, block. So I want to be able to just kind of hold up my hand and just stop like that. Good girl. Because most animals are extremely keen on body language. That's how they communicate with each other. And so they really notice body language in other creatures, animal or human. And so she learns very quickly what my body language is when I'm pressuring her. See how she put her head down there and started going forward? So I knew I couldn't get directly in front of her. She was going to run me over. And I have less stopping power if I'm in front of her, like this. See, she can dig in and pull, but as soon as I move to the side, she has to get to it. Come on, Buttercup. Blossom. Keep getting her name mixed up. Come on, big girl. Good girl, Blossom. Come on. She doesn't want to leave the bowl. She might be going in heat, which would actually be really nice. She's here for breeding. But right now, the goal is to get her halter broke. Good girl, Blossom. This is what I eventually want, her walking next to me, without crowding into my space or running ahead. Some cows are really annoying to lead because they try to constantly run into you and push you out of their way. And to prevent that, nope. I said it's time to stop. So you gotta stop, girl. Gotta stop. Back up. Come on. I'm just gonna kind of back her up a step. At least that's the plan. Good. We need to put some brakes on you. She wants to go over there with the other cows, and especially with the bull. So I'm gonna turn her loose really soon. But I want her to start getting the picture that I'm in charge, not her. And I'll be a good leader, but she has to follow. So, anyway, back to what I was saying. If you're leading a cow and they're trying to run into you, you probably shouldn't do what I'm doing right now and get into a push and shove match, because you'll lose. Unless you hold them off balance like this, and then you can eventually stop it. Good job. But if they're trying to run into you from the side, so when I'm leading her like this, come on, girl. Good girl. When I'm leading her like this, you put your hand up at eye level, so it's fairly close to their eye. And then if she tries to shove into me, I can push her away. Now, I didn't want to really bump her the way I would if I was actually leading her and she's trying to push into me. I'd take my hand and go kind of like that up against her face and bump her face away. Come on. Like this. Except a bit harder. See, she moved. She moved her face. So that's the general idea. That's how you can keep them from running you over. Sometimes it doesn't work, but in general, especially with herd animals, if a dominant animal comes up to a less dominant animal, it's going to push it out of its way. With body language, just by walking up to it in a certain way, they can read each other's body language extremely well. And so the less dominant animal will usually move away at that point. If it does not move away, then the dominant animal, in this case her, because she's the biggest and she does like to dominate the others, the dominant one will then butt it and shove it out of its path. Now, since I'm a lot smaller than she is, I cannot physically shove this animal out of my path, but by knowing her pressure points, such as her eye, where they're more sensitive, I can move her away from me like that. See, she doesn't want to run her eye into me, but she's also unwilling to get ground. So, now that she's moved her head, but she didn't move her feet, I'm going to kind of shove her around a little bit like this, and then stop. Good girl. Basically teaching her the principle that I can decide where she goes, not necessarily her. Yeah, you're learning, aren't you, girl? I think she's going to be a really good cow. She just has to learn a few more things first. Come on, girl. Let's go put your regular halter back on. Come on, Mom. Come on. There's a good cow. Basic stuff here. When they resist pressure, apply more. Apply as much as is necessary to get your result. Come on. All right. When they yield to pressure, then loosen up. So I'm not pulling on her as long as she's doing what I want her to. I'm going to try to lead her back over here. Come on. Not an option. Come on. Okay. Come on. Move your hind end. See how she put her head down? She really wants to follow the bull, which is fine with me. I just need to get her other halter on first. And it's over here. Come on, girl. Good girl. When she yields to this pressure at all, I'm going to loosen up on the rope. Right now I'm in a pulling contest. There we go. If that had been a webbing halter, I almost guarantee you she would not have moved her feet, because it doesn't put enough pressure on them. But they can only pull so hard against the rope halter. Come on, girl. This way. Cows aren't the brightest creatures, so usually it takes them a while to get it. But they eventually learn. When in pressure, yield to it instead of pulling against it, and it'll eventually go away. Good girl, Blossom. Come on. Come on. You're almost there. Picture of a stubborn cow. Good girl. See how as soon as she took a step forward, I immediately released the rope. Good girl. That time it took a lot less. Nope. Stop. Good cow. Yeah, she's a pretty fast learner for a cow. This is good. I'll just put her regular halter on now and turn her loose for the night. She won't need too much more of this. Just working with her a little bit whenever I need to handle her, and she'll get this in a few days. Nope. Gotta stay here. I don't want her to get away with pulling away from me. I'm going to take the rope off and then walk away from her, not vice versa. And that's just to help establish the basic principle that I talked about earlier, that the human has to be dominant in the cow to farmer relationship. All right. Good girl.